Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Abbott living room was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that comes before an emotional storm. The family photos on the mantel seemed to watch in judgment as Allie stood near the doorway, her trembling fingers clutching the handle of her suitcase. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. This wasn't just another goodbye. This was the goodbye, the one that would tear the Abbott family apart. Jack sat motionless at first, confusion etched across his face. He'd seen that look before, the haunted, distant look in Allie's eyes, but he never imagined what would follow. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked, each word slicing through the air like glass. "I'm leaving, Grandpa, and I'm not coming back." The sentence hung there, heavy and merciless, as if the walls themselves gasped. Jack blinked in disbelief, his heart thudding with denial. "Allie, sweetheart, what are you talking about? You just got here. We've finally started feeling like a family again." His tone trembled with panic, a mixture of love and fear. But Allie's eyes were firm, shimmering with tears she refused to let fall. "It's not that simple," she whispered. "I can't stay here anymore. Too many lies. Too much guilt." Jack rose from the couch, desperation lacing his every movement. "What lies, Allie? What guilt? Whatever it is, we can fix it together. You don't just walk away from family." But Allie's jaw clenched. She'd rehearsed this moment, told herself she'd be strong, but now, looking at the man who had given her love and belonging, she felt herself breaking. "It's not about you," she said. "It's about me, and Noah." The second that name left her lips, Jack froze. The shift in his expression was almost animalistic. "Noah," he repeated, his voice low and sharp. "What about Noah?" Across the room, Noah stepped into the light, his posture nervous but defiant. "Jack, let's just talk this out," he began, but Jack's eyes were already blazing. The puzzle pieces began to fall into place in Jack's mind, the late-night talks, the glances, the sudden changes in Allie's mood. "You," Jack muttered, pointing a shaking finger at Noah. "What did you do?" Noah swallowed hard, guilt written all over his face. "It's not like that, Jack. I swear," but before he could finish, Allie spoke up, her voice breaking through the tension like thunder. "We're in love, Grandpa. I love him, and I'm leaving with him." Silence. Pure, electric silence. Then, in an instant, Jack's world shattered. His hands curled into fists as the blood drained from his face. "You what?" he roared, his voice echoing through the Abbott estate like a cannon blast. The words tore through the air, filled with disbelief and fury. "Allie, tell me you didn't just say that." But she didn't back down. Tears glistened in her eyes as she nodded. "It's true. I love him." The moment those words landed, Jack snapped. His entire body went rigid as decades of suppressed rage and heartbreak boiled to the surface. "After everything this family has been through, after everything I have done for you," his voice broke, but his anger didn't. "You betray me like this? You betray this family by falling for him?" Noah stepped forward, trying to defend her. "Jack, she's not betraying you. We didn't plan this. It just happened." But that only made it worse. "It just happened?" Jack hissed. "You think that makes it okay? You think you can stroll into my family, into my home, and take my granddaughter from me like she's some prize?" Allie tried to step between them, but Jack was already too far gone. His chest heaved, and his fists trembled as every ounce of restraint he'd ever known evaporated. "You used her," he shouted, his voice breaking with pain. "You used her and lied to me." Noah raised his hands in defense, pleading, "Jack, please, I love her. I never wanted to hurt you." But that was it. The final spark that ignited the explosion. Jack's rage erupted in one violent motion. He lunged forward, his fist connecting with Noah's jaw in a sickening crack. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. Noah stumbled back, crashing into the side table, sending a lamp shattering across the floor. Jack! Allie screamed, rushing to Noah's side. But Jack wasn't finished. Years of grief, the loss of chemo, the pain of broken trust, the endless cycle of betrayal, all poured out of him in that one brutal moment. You think you can waltz in here and destroy what's left of my family? Jack bellowed, his voice trembling with raw emotion. I trusted you, Noah. I treated you like a son. Noah wiped the blood from his lip, staring at Jack with disbelief and heartbreak. You think I wanted this? He shouted back. You think I wanted to hurt anyone? I fell in love with her, Jack. You can't control who you love. Jack's eyes flashed with fury, his voice breaking as he shouted, She's my granddaughter. The words ripped from his throat like a wound that would never heal. Allie's sobs filled the room, desperate and helpless. Stop it, please. Both of you, stop, she cried, her voice shaking. But the damage was already done. Jack's breathing was heavy, his fists still clenched, his eyes glassy with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. You were supposed to protect her, he hissed at Noah, his tone trembling with restrained violence. Not take her away from me. Noah stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. She's not a child, Jack. She makes her own choices. You can hate me all you want, but she deserves to live her life. Allie grabbed Noah's hand, shaking, but resolute. We're leaving, she whispered. Right now. Jack's entire body went cold. He stared at her, his face pale and hollow. You're choosing him, over me? He asked, his voice barely audible. Allie hesitated, her heart breaking under the weight of his words. I'm not choosing one over the other, she said softly. I'm choosing myself. But to Jack, it was betrayal. The same kind of betrayal that had haunted his family for generations. The echo of old wounds, of chemo's anger, of Diane's manipulations, of every moment he'd fought to keep his family together, it all came rushing back in a flood of anguish. You're just like the rest, Jack whispered, his voice cracking. Every time I think I can trust someone, they leave. They lie. They destroy everything I've built. Allie's tears streamed freely now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you. But Jack turned away, unable to look at her. No, he said coldly. You already did. Noah tried to guide Allie toward the door, but Jack spun around again, his voice shaking with pain and fury. If you walk out that door, Allie, don't you dare come back. The ultimatum sliced through the room, final and cruel. Allie stopped, her shoulders trembling. Grandpa, please don't do this, she pleaded. I love you. I always will. But Jack's face was stone. Then prove it, he said. Stay. The silence that followed was unbearable. Allie looked from Jack to Noah, torn in half by love and loyalty. Noah whispered, we should go, his voice hoarse. And then, she made the choice. She picked up her suitcase and walked to the door. Jack's heart broke all over again as the sound of the latch clicked. Don't you dare leave me like this, he shouted, his voice breaking with grief. But she didn't turn around. She walked out into the cold night, her sobs lost to the darkness. The door closed behind her, leaving Jack alone with his pain. He turned toward Noah, who lingered in the doorway, looking devastated. You think you've won? Jack hissed, his voice trembling. You think love makes this right? Noah's eyes filled with tears. No one wins, Jack. We all lose today. Then he walked out too, leaving Jack surrounded by broken glass and shattered trust. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence deafening. Jack sank to his knees, staring at the spot where Allie had stood. His hands shook, his breath came ragged, and the fury that had once consumed him faded into despair. He punched the floor, his voice breaking as he cried out, why does this keep happening to me? Memories of chemo, of lost love, of every betrayal he'd endured, they all came flooding back in a single, devastating wave. I tried, he whispered, tears spilling down his cheeks. I tried to be better, to be a good man. But the echoes of his own mistakes seemed to answer back. Allie's goodbye had torn open every wound he'd ever buried. Hours later, the once vibrant Abbott living room was dark. The shattered lamp lay in pieces, the scent of anger still thick in the air. Jack sat alone, a glass of untouched whiskey beside him, staring into the nothingness. He replayed the moment over and over, her eyes, her words, the way Noah had looked at her with that same intensity he'd once felt for love long lost. You what? He muttered again under his breath, as if saying it would somehow undo it all. But it wouldn't. The damage was permanent. In the silence, Jack finally realized what had truly broken him. It wasn't the love between Allie and Noah. It was the loss of control, the reminder that love doesn't obey rules, bloodlines, or expectations. That despite everything he'd done to hold his family together, he couldn't stop history from repeating itself. And as dawn crept over the Abbott mansion, Jack whispered through his tears, I lost her, just like I lost them all. But deep down, beneath the heartbreak and the anger, one emotion still lingered, regret. Because when his fists flew and his rage exploded, Jack hadn't just struck Noah, he'd destroyed the fragile bond that once made them family. And now, all that was left was the silence, and a man who had finally realized that love, once broken, can never truly be repaired. Jack's breathing was ragged as he sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the quiet hum of the air conditioning doing nothing to soothe the chaos raging in his chest. His knuckles throbbed from where they had collided with Noah's jaw, a sharp, pulsing reminder of the moment he completely lost control. The glass of whiskey on the table before him remained untouched, the amber liquid catching glints of light from the shattered lamp on the floor. The silence was suffocating. Every creak in the old Abbott mansion seemed to echo the word he couldn't escape, why? He replayed the scene over and over in his mind, each memory cutting deeper than the last. Allie's trembling voice. Her defiant eyes. Noah's plea for understanding. The way his own voice, foreign and monstrous, had boomed with rage when he screamed, you what? The instant he hit Noah, the look on Allie's face, shock, horror, and heartbreak, had pierced him deeper than any wound he'd ever known. Now, that expression haunted him. He could still hear her sobbing as she rushed to Noah's side, could still see the terror in her eyes as she realized her grandfather wasn't the man she thought he was. Jack closed his eyes, pressing his palms against them, trying to blot out the images. But they wouldn't go away. They came like waves, unstoppable, relentless. He could still feel the anger coursing through him, a beast unleashed that he didn't even recognize. It wasn't the first time he'd lost someone he loved to anger or pride, but it felt like the most devastating. I'm just like him, Jack muttered bitterly to himself. Just like my father. The words tasted like ash. John Abbott had been a good man, but even he had moments of fury and frustration that scared young Jack. Now, Jack was that man, older, lonelier, and consumed by the same uncontrollable fire. He stood up and began to pace, running a hand through his hair as memories of Allie's arrival flooded his mind. How excited he'd been to find her, to finally have a piece of chemo back in his life. She had healed something in him that he thought would never mend, that gaping hole left behind by years of regret and estrangement. She'd brought laughter into the house again, warmth, light. And now, in one night, that light had walked out the door with Noah Newman. How could she, he whispered hoarsely. How could she just leave me like that? He wandered over to the mantel and picked up a framed photo, Allie smiling, standing beside him at the Abbott family picnic. Her eyes sparkled with the same gentle warmth chemo once had. He traced a trembling finger over the glass. I was supposed to protect you, he said softly, his voice breaking. Not drive you away. A knock startled him from his thoughts. He turned toward the door, his heart pounding. For a second, he hoped it was Allie, that maybe she'd come back, that maybe she'd realized she couldn't leave things like this. But when he opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Billy. His younger brother stood there, his expression grim. Jack, he said quietly. I heard what happened. Jack's shoulders stiffened. Of course you did. News travels fast in this family. Billy stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over the mess, the shattered lamp, the overturned table, the faint trace of blood on the floor. "You hit him?" Billy asked carefully. Jack's jaw tightened. "He deserved it," he said flatly. "Did he?" Billy countered. "Or did he just tell you something you didn't want to hear?" Jack turned on him, his eyes flashing. "Don't start with me, Billy. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand plenty," Billy interrupted. "I've been where you are. Angry. Hurt. Feeling betrayed. But hitting the guy? That doesn't fix anything. It just makes you the villain in her story." Jack's face fell, his anger faltering. "She's my granddaughter, Billy. My family. He took her away from me." Billy sighed. "She's not a child anymore, Jack. You don't own her. You raised her to be strong, independent, and capable of making her own choices. Now she's doing that, and you can't handle it because it's not the choice you wanted." Jack looked away, his chest tightening with guilt. "She's making a mistake. Noah is a Newman. And you know what that means. Look at the history between our families, the lies, the betrayals, the chaos. I can't let her fall into that same cycle." Billy shook his head slowly. "You can't stop love, Jack. And trying to control it? That's what destroys families." He glanced toward the door. "You didn't just lose her because of Noah. You lost her because you didn't trust her." The words hit Jack like a slap. He sank onto the couch, staring blankly ahead. "She said she loved him," he murmured. "And I hit him." His voice broke, raw and weary. "God, what have I done?" Billy's expression softened. He sat beside his brother, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You made a mistake. We all do. But you can fix it. Not tonight, she's too hurt. But when she's ready to listen, you go to her. You apologize. Not as a grandfather trying to control her life, but as a man who's sorry for the pain he caused." Jack nodded slowly, his throat tight. "I just wanted to protect her," he whispered. "I know," Billy said gently. "But sometimes love means letting people make their own mistakes. You taught me that once, remember?" For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall, marking each agonizing second that Allie was gone. Finally, Billy stood. "I'll check on Noah. Make sure he's all right." Jack flinched. "Tell him," he hesitated, struggling to find the words. "Tell him he stopped himself. Just make sure he's okay." Billy nodded. "You'll get your chance to say it yourself. But not if you keep letting your pride run the show." After Billy left, Jack sat in the silence again, his thoughts a chaotic swirl of shame and longing. The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by the echoes of his own mistakes. Every room carried a memory of Allie, her laughter in the kitchen, her voice calling for him from the stairs, the way she'd sit on the couch and talk about her dreams. Now, all of that was gone. As the night stretched into early morning, Jack wandered upstairs and stopped outside Allie's bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open, his heart breaking at the sight. Her bed was neatly made, the sheets untouched. The desk where she used to study was bare. The only thing she'd left behind was a framed photo, one of her, Jack, and Noah at the Abbott pool last summer. He picked it up, his reflection distorted in the glass. "She really loved him," he whispered. He sat on her bed, staring at the empty space that used to be filled with her laughter and warmth. "I failed you," he said softly. "I let my fear become stronger than my love." Downstairs, his phone buzzed, a text from Billy. "Billy, Noah's fine. Bruised jaw, but he's not pressing charges. Allie's with him. She's safe." Jack let out a long, shaky breath, a strange mix of relief and sorrow flooding him. "Safe," he murmured. "That's all that matters." The next day came slowly, bringing with it sunlight that felt too bright, too intrusive. The Abbott mansion looked the same, but everything felt different. The staff moved quietly, sensing the tension. Jack spent the morning sitting in his study, staring at the framed photo of Allie on his desk. He'd told himself 100 times that family comes first, that forgiveness and compassion were the cornerstones of being an Abbott. But now, those words felt hollow. By midday, there was a knock at the door again. This time, it was Sharon. She looked uneasy, her expression tight. "Jack," she said softly, "can we talk?" Jack nodded silently, motioning for her to come in. "I just spoke to Noah," she said, sitting across from him. "He told me what happened." Jack exhaled heavily, his voice low. "I'm sure he did.